Today, we're thrilled to introduce Dr. Lina Mohjazi, Senior Member of IEEE and a Lecturer of Autonomous Systems and Connectivity at the University of Glasgow's James Watt School of Engineering. Dr. Mohjazi's groundbreaking research is shaping the future of wireless communication and technology. Her work spans beyond 5G wireless technologies, physical layer optimization, wireless power transfer, and machine learning applications for future wireless systems. With over 60 influential publications, she's a trailblazer in reconfigurable intelligent surfaces, cooperative and relaying networks, information theory, and advanced signal processing. Dr. Mohjazi is passionate about creating sustainable and energy-efficient systems that reduce our carbon footprint while advancing global connectivity. Her innovative solutions in wireless power transfer and green communication technologies are transforming how society interacts with technology, impacting both individuals and the environment. Join us as we explore Dr. Lina Mohjazi's contributions to the world of reconfigurable intelligent surfaces, cooperative wireless networks, and sustainable technology solutions. Her vision is revolutionizing wireless communication and inspiring the next generation of engineers.
Welcome everybody to another exciting episode of Zengit. As you guys are aware about our journey and about our mission, we are trying to connect bright minds here so that everybody who is interested in science and engineering can have a set of bright future. They can get the ideas on what to pursue as a career if you are already into this field. As we move forward with every episode, we have incredible guest with us, and today again we have Dr. Lina here, and we are going to get inspired by her incredible journey. So let me just introduce who all we have here. So as you heard our guest, Dr. Lina, then I have my co-host Rida, and then the face behind Zengit is Jack, who is just behind entire this idea and entire of this concept of promoting science and engineering. Welcome, Dr. Lina. Welcome, Jack and Rida, to our another episode of Zengit.
Thank you, Anika. Thank you, Zach and Rida, for the very kind welcome. And it's such a pleasure to be joining you and be part of this very exciting platform and be able to inspire the scientists to be in one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dr. Lina. So everyone, let me introduce what Dr. Lina is doing and what she is actually what history she holds in terms of her education, her professional background. So she is currently working as an assistant professor at James Watt School of Engineering, University of Glasgow. And she has received her previous degrees from UAE and some other regions in UAE. But her research and interest, I would like to elaborate. Those includes green and sustainable wireless communications, IoT, but everybody, today, everybody is interested in implementing IoTs, and then machine learning, data analytics, energy efficiency, fundamental performance limits, and 5G technologies, not only 5G, but beyond 5G. And not only that, she has also authored over 60 research papers in prestigious international journals and conferences. She has also served as an associate editor of IEEE community. She has been recognized for her contribution. She landed on so many awards related to teaching and IEEE, especially in Women Engineering Society, you can say. She is also a fellow of Women Engineering Society and an affiliate member of the Mohammed bin Rashid Academy of Scientists, UAE. She has been positioned as in 100 brilliant and inspiring women in 6G, and that is, I think, beyond incredible. So welcome, Dr. Lina. I would like you to please elaborate what I missed from this introduction. Please enlighten our viewers with that.
Thank you so much.
I have one title for Dr. Lina. She's the actual definition of beauty with brains, I would say.
True.
Thank you so much. I'm really humbled, and it feels very refreshing to see wonderful and brilliant women like both of you. Thank you again for the thorough introduction. I would say I would start by highlighting my career journey or my education journey that would have led me to an associate professor at the University of Glasgow. And then we can dive more into some interesting stories that I was encountered with throughout the journey. So a bit of a background about myself. I'm originally from Syria, from a city called Latakia, which is on the Mediterranean Sea. However, I lived in Syria only for 2 years before my family moved to the United Arab Emirates. So I grew up in the in UAE, and that's where I received my high school education, as well as my bachelor and my master's degrees in electrical and electronics engineering. After that, I have taken a job as a lecturer in Khalifa University in Abu Dhabi, UAE, which is one of the leading universities in science and technology in not only in UAE, but in the region. And I found much inspiration and passion towards teaching. And so at that time, I knew that I wanted to pursue a career in academia. So I moved forward and pursued a PhD degree from the UK, from the University of Surrey, in electrical and electronics engineering. I continued into research. So I was a visiting researcher in Glasgow University for a year after my PhD. And during that year, after where I have conducted some exciting research into 6G technologies and sustainable wireless communications, I have applied for the job of a lecturer, which is the equivalent of an assistant professor in the rest of the world. So I moved from UAE to Glasgow, Scotland in 2020, right in the middle of pandemic, to hop on this journey, which I would always say is a golden opportunity, because Glasgow is part of a Russell Group universities of the UK, and I know that I would be within a world-leading research group. So I moved 4 years ago. So today marks my 4th year anniversary, actually. That's when I started 4 years back. And very recently, I have been promoted to an associate professor, which is a senior lecturer at the University of Glasgow, working at the same field.
Great. Thank you for your brief introduction, Dr. Lina. And I would really like to know what actually compelled you to become a lecturer. Like, why didn't you choose any other field? Why lecturership? Or why teaching?
Right. Okay, so this would need us to go back to after when I graduated from my bachelor's degree. So that was in 2008. At that time, a global economical crisis has happened, and the employment reduced significantly everywhere in the world. So I was having hopes that once I graduate, I will be working in a company who is a network provider or a communication provider. At that time, for example, Etisalat or Du in the United Arab Emirates, or other companies who would require engineers to develop their communication systems. However, due to that economical crisis, that route unfortunately did not flow as planned. Instead, I was actually offered a job as an administrative coordinator in Khalifa University. At that time, when I graduated, I thought this field isn't relevant to my field of expertise. I wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to practice engineering after I graduate, but there were simply no jobs offered at that time for fresh graduates, especially. So I wanted to apply for that job for the sake of just getting some experience and being in an academic environment, which is an environment that I'm familiar with. And I have spent my time on that role looking after organizing student schedules, student trips, looking after the staffs let's say, issues, most being the liaison between the staff and the HR, working on their documentation related to employment. So everything, but not engineering. However, it took only one event to kind of realign myself with my purpose. So part of my job was to organize events for the students, and I was organizing an event for to introduce the students about the IEEE, which is the Institute for Electrical and Electronics Engineer. It's an international institute, and it is the major umbrella that kind of holds all the electrical and electronics engineers under it. So I was part of that organization committee, and as such, I have introduced the speaker, who was a senior IEEE member in the university. And through a very informal conversation, I came to know that they were planning to open a master's degree in that university, which is Khalifa University, and that they are going to open the applications for scholarships. So I applied for the scholarship, and at that time, I started my master's in electrical and electronic engineering. However, as part of my scholarship, I had to teach, so that, you know, I can sustain my scholarship. And because I started teaching, I started to realize that teaching is a very rewarding work. It gave me lots of passion to see the students grow in the field of electrical and communication engineering, because I was supporting the labs related to the electrical engineering department. And once I finished my master's, I realized that academia was for me, and I wanted to learn and grow more. So I decided that I wanted to take that to the next level, and I pursued a PhD, and I became a lecturer.
Great, great.
It's a very inspiring story, Dr. Lina.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know a little bit about your research area. So you've researched in 5G, 6G technologies, IoT, and machine learning. Can you just sort of enlighten us about your journey on this research work, and like, how did you conduct this work? Did you feel like there were any particular challenges that you had to deal with during this journey or anything?
Okay. So this is a very interesting question, because research is always associated with challenges. The word research, it means that you are searching for something you don't know if you are going to achieve it or not. So the idea of this alone brings lots of fears, insecurities at some points, and lack of confidence in a very fast growing field. But at the same time, it is a very fascinating field. So the 5G and 6G technologies have been rapidly evolving into in many different ways, and they are affecting many sectors of our societies. And throughout my journey, so if we look back when I started doing research in my master's, at that time there was no 5G, no 6G. We were looking at we were looking at research towards 5G, which was supposed to come after 10 years. But part of that was, you could do a lot in this field, because simply you can apply different concepts, whether it is in electrical engineering or electronics or software engineering or communications, together with computer science. So it is very multidisciplinary and enables flexibility in what you want to work on, whether you want to work on software or hardware, or the integration of both of them. And being able to contribute to the pool of this growing research, and seeing my work being appreciated and accepted by world-leading experts when I used to publish my research work, gave me those kind of rewards and confidence that, yes, I can do more. My research is growing. I have been cited by other researchers. It means that it is appealing, and there's potential for it to inspire other researchers to build on it. However, it was never, say, machine learning from the start or IoT from the start. It has evolved. These topics have evolved through the research. And this is something I would say is the beauty of research, is that you might start with an idea, you might have a topic or a direction that you want to work with, but as you read more, as you learn more about it, as you see what's going on in the literature and what our other researchers are doing around the world, you would identify areas where no one has contributed in, and you would say, oh, I want to be the first or the pioneer to be exploring this, or to be presenting results on that, or to be investigating what would be the performance of the wireless systems if we did that kind of a technology, or if we proposed this method. And based on the results, you change slightly again the research direction, and you move on, you kind of steer your direction left and right, until you have a clearer picture of your main purpose of goal, which I would say it is clear for me now that I'm really thoroughly enjoying the direction of sustainable and green wireless communication to serve IoT applications.
Great, great. To me, research is always challenging. It is time demanding, but at the end, when you get appreciation and when you see like your work is getting fruitful, I think that motivates you, and nothing is, great than that. So, great work, Dr. Lina. And you must have faced so many challenges while your research work. So I want to know what all challenges were there and how you actually overcome them.
All right, so I'm going to start with non-personal challenges and then reflect on the personal challenges. So the non-personal challenges of research is that you might be spending a month on conducting a research, and by the time you actually submit your research to be published, you might have seen that other authors have submitted very similar kind of a framework, but you would never know about it until maybe a day or two before submission. And it means that all of your effort has gone to waste. And I have encountered that. So in my PhD, I have worked very, very hard on a topic for 6 months. And I have conducted the research, came up with results, wrote the paper, and created a draft for submission. Life was nice. And then when I was planning to submit, a paper popped in on the library where I usually search for research papers, which is the IEEE Explore, where the researchers have conducted very, very, very similar approach. So there were about like 90% similarities in what they were proposing to mine. But it just happened that we were in different parts of the world, maybe thinking on a similar approach or way to solve a particular problem. We both came with very similar solutions. However, they have handled the study from one perspective, and I was handling it from another perspective, but the research was very, very similar. And I felt into complete loss or failure at that time. Not because I failed in conducting the research, it's because I felt that I had lost 6 months of my life doing something that others were doing. And this is something that is very likely to happen in a very fast field, such as 6G technologies and related fields. So I had to work 2-3 more months in order to change the direction of the research, enhance my results, see it from a different perspective, and resubmit again for it to be reviewed. So this is one of the challenges. Another challenge would be my research was very much theoretical, so it is all based on deriving long mathematical equations to come up with an expression that you can use to calculate the performance of a technology or a wireless communication system in simulations. So sometimes I would be stuck for a month in deriving an equation, which is very, very heavily demanding on mathematics. And at that time, there weren't advanced tools such as ChatGPT, or even the old versions of software that I used to use, such as MATLAB. They were not fully helping or powerful so that they would help you in deriving these expressions. You would all need to do it by hand. So these kind of things, they would always impede the speed of the research. Now, moving on later to becoming an assistant professor, I had to lead a research group, and I had to lead the research projects of PhD students. Each have their own topic, each have their different timelines, each have their different backgrounds and needs. So, so with all the challenges that research brings on its own, it was also very challenging to keep the momentum within the research group flowing, and keep inspiring them to deliver the best that they could do in order to be on the pioneers in a very fast field. Now, on a personal manner, I started my PhD with when my daughter was 10 months. So I had to do to handle my PhD while having a little baby in the house. And one of the things was really challenging to find this work-life balance or research balance, because in research, you could do research at midnight, you could do research in weekends, you could do research on holidays. And I know that I had a very tight timeline to finish my PhD. So with all the challenges that the motherhood would bring, I had to handle being also on top of my research. So even with sleepless nights, I would feel the urge that I would need to turn up because I needed to deliver and I needed to still make these deadlines. So, however, I'm not saying that research is all about challenges. It is rewarding and inspiring when you see the result of your research coming to life.
I think, sorry, I think you just kind of very lightly touched up on the fact, the motherhood and being a researcher simultaneously, but I think is so much more complex than what you just referred, you know, and there is a lot more to it, and, you know, and maybe, you know, you could elaborate a little bit more on that. But I wanted to take you back to the beginning, since maybe, I don't know if you could go back to how early you could go back into your childhood. Is it, if you remember when you were 2 years old, 3 years old, what was the, if you could tell us you know, a little bit about that, your early childhood, and, you know, how was that at a time, and what were the things that were surrounding you, inspiring you? You know, what was that environment like? So somebody at any age could, you know, relate to your journey.
Right. Well, I would take you back to as far as I can remember, which is basically 4 or 5 years old. So when I was in primary school, and then I would take you through what sort of activities I used to do, because I think all of that would affect the personality we grow up in one way or another. So for some context, I come from a family where we are 2 children. So it's me and my brother. And we both studied in a private school in UAE. So basically my education was mainly in Arabic. But also we would have our own English language and French language at the time, even from the beginning of school, from the preschool when I was 5 years old. At that time, I remember that I was fascinated by doing different activities, not really onto the education, because education was very light at that time. But I was, as I grew up into 5, 6, 7 years old, I was always being involved in different activities, swimming, playing the piano. Later on, moving forward, I was doing skating, I was playing tennis. So I've been privileged, I would say, that my parents were offering to us every possible opportunity to grow on an interpersonal manner, and by doing lots of extracurricular activities, which have definitely helped in my maybe problem-solving skills in one way or another. And because of that, I think I was very much fascinated about mathematics and physics later on in the school. And I was always having these two subjects as my top priorities out of all the subjects that I was taught in school. And I also remember that one day, I think I was 6 or 7 at that time, my dad, who is a civil engineer, and he was heading the project of building the main building of the main network provider in the Emirates, which is Etisalat. And at that time, I was going with him to work for a visit, because it was a summer school holiday, and I went with him to office. And I remember that he took me to the top floor of that building where they have installed all of the antennas. And I was very fascinated by that view because I've never seen something similar before. And I've asked my dad to explain to me what was that and what is this used for. So he explained to me the concept of wireless communications and radio transmission, and of course, in very simple terms, but I could relate because, okay, whenever I go to school with my mom or dad, we always would hear the radio. I would know that there's some way or another that the signal is received wirelessly. So this was my very first inspiration towards wireless communications that perhaps stuck into my head until I became a senior at my high school. So during the last year of my high school, we took lots of electrical concepts into physics. And I was totally inspired by how signals can be transmitted from one way to the other without even seeing them or touching them, but only seeing the effect. So it was the first spark of interest, I would say, that I have developed for electrical engineering, and which would have led me later on to study electrical engineering. So I would say a combination of both, my parents being both engineers, plus doing lots of activities through my childhood, extracurricular activities through my childhood, and being sparked by different incidences throughout my life, and being exposed to these interesting concepts in physics by a very passionate teacher. So I would here stress on the fact that teachers would really have a great impact on the students they teach, because loving physics and the teacher who taught us, they probably have played a majority of why I took later on the step towards applying for an electrical and electronics engineering. So I've always wanted to be a role model in teaching as well, because I really deeply understand what a good teacher have an impact on the students she or he are teaching.
I think we all could agree that, yeah, teachers are one of the most, should be one of the most rewarded, jobs in the economy, even they're not, but they're one of the most important jobs. You mentioned your mother also is an engineer. What kind of engineering? So father was a civil engineer, and mom?
She is also a civil engineer.
Okay.
And also my brother is a civil engineer, but I decided to take on an electrical engineering direction. But engineering runs in the family though, so must have a great impact.
So do you remember when you were that young, when they were bringing you any gifts and stuff, were you taking it apart, trying to make something else? Were you doing any other stuff too, or like trying to redesign your toys or anything like that at early age?
I can't really remember something very similar to that, but I know that I would have spent a big chunk of time understanding how mathematics serves the concept of problem solving, and how I was very much interested to it. I was more into playing Barbies and more of a girly stuff. nothing that I have particularly redesigned. However, started learning how mathematics and physics helps the problem solving in wireless communications. And of course, I'm talking about a very older age at that time. I started to think of how we can make use of these available tools to work on a project that is very interesting to me as a woman, or something that would interest maybe lots of girls around the world. So I started recently a project which is called the Internet of Mirrors, where I would really be excited to explore how wireless communications or communications in general can facilitate a platform where we have a connected Internet of Mirrors. So instead of talking about only Internet of Things or IoT, we are now talking about Internet of Mirrors and how these mirrors can support beauty and health, I mean the skin health at the same time. So that's where now I'm kind of replaying with things, and that's where I'm bringing my passion in beauty and healthcare into my field of expertise, which is IoT and connectivity.
It's amazing. Do you think the fact that you also, like you said, you were multidisciplinary early on in your age, not only various type of sports and activities, and parents exposing you to so many different things, especially mathematics. You refer to mathematics. Do you think music had a lot to do with it? I
do think deeply that music would have a great impact, because music, it triggers for you to work on the coordination of both hands at the same time. It means that you are actually asking your brain, that the two sides of your brain to work together at the same time and to do this kind of coordination. So in one way or another, this leads to better neural connections, if I would say it right. And I do believe, and then the science have proved it as well, that learning a musical instrument, especially the piano, because you are basically playing different notes by the two hands simultaneously, different melodies sometimes, but they are put together to make one beautiful melody. And having the two sides of the brain working together would have a very, very positive impact on the abilities towards problem solving skills in general, whether you apply it in mathematics, physics, or any other scientific field. So my answer is a definite yes. And that's why I have been always encouraging my daughter to play an instrument. And of course, I'm biased to piano. So I encouraged her to take piano lessons at a very early age, or do anything related to music, whether it is dance. So this kind of head-body coordination would really have a great impact on how we approach not only problem solving in our science field, but how we approach problem solving in our daily life. So that would have a great impact. I totally see that very, 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 very powerful kind of a way to boost this skill.
Yeah, I mean, when you look back at some of these ancient scientists, they all had like multidisciplinary backgrounds anyway, right? There were some poets and, artists and passionate about music and everything, and or play the instrument. And then also they were, into variety of different disciplines, like you mentioned, even astronomers or anything else in mathematics, chemistry, try to kind of connect all the dots in that sense.
Indeed. And this would really highly challenge the stereotypes that might be very much popular, which is that one person might be fixated to only one personality or one career or one goal. But I would always say that this is not necessarily the reason, or this doesn't make necessarily a successful person. A successful person in their own field could be also successful in many other skills as well, and they all contribute to one another. And I've always actively tried to dedicate time to other activities, whether it is for me or my daughter, because this would also naturally bring a work-life balance, and it would also emphasize on the role that we need to work on things that we enjoy, and so that we can really be productive in education, in our career, in whatever kind of responsibility we are involved in.
Positive Nation impacts 21 million lives around the world. By doing positive acts of kindness around the world.
Every heartfelt plea builds a future where every soul is free. From every corner of the earth to every single face, we're spreading kindness, leaving a loving trace. We're Positive Nation, where hope lights the way. With 7 billion people, we'll rise every day. Through positive acts of kindness, let our voices sing. We're creating a world where positivity reigns. When the road is long and the night is cold, hold on to the love, let your heart be bold. In every act of kindness, in every care.
Join us and be a part of the Positive Nation community.
We're Positive Nation, where hope lights the way. With 7 billion people, we'll rise every day.
You mentioned something about green IoT. If you don't mind to dive in a little bit more into that, just for our audience to better understand, what do you
Yes.
refer? Because a lot of people talked about Industry 2.0 and IoTs and all this. But what do you mean when you say green IoT?
Right. So they use green and sustainable interchangeably. And this refers to, so if we talk about sustainable communications and then how sustainable communication serves the IoT, so I'll break it down into two parts. So when we talk about sustainable wireless communications, that sustainable part means that we're trying to make the technology of transmitting data more environmentally friendly. So, for example, we might want to use less energy, reduce the waste, so that we can minimize the impact on the environment. So overall, we are looking at solutions that would reduce the carbon footprint of communication technologies. It could also be on how we can manage the available resources of a network without necessarily using a significant amount of power. So, and that would all lead to having an environmentally friendly mechanism of improving the performance of the network, but without exaggerating and using the environmental resources. So this is something I am very much excited about, because it doesn't only have an impact on the technology, but it also have an impact on the society and on the environment. Now, green or sustainable IoT is any kind of technology that would enable the applications of IoT. And one of the technologies, or the 6G technologies, that would enable such a green and sustainable mechanism of transmitting data without the need of needing extra resources is something that we call reconfigurable intelligent surfaces. And this is, of course, one of the many technologies that we would be seeing in 6G when it comes. And scientists are still working on it at the moment, and mainly I am very much interested in it. So these types of surfaces, the purpose of them is to reflect wireless signals. Say, for example, you are sitting in a room, but for some reason, you are not receiving good connectivity to your phone due to blockages, due to how the walls are structured within the wall. And we need to boost or to improve the coverage without the need to installing a new Wi-Fi point or a new access point. So the way to do it is to install a surface, like just plug a surface, which is a rectangular plane, onto the wall. And that surface has the role of steering the wireless signals in the room towards a desired direction. And it uses very, very, very minimal power compared to installing a new transmitter device. So in that case, and for the first time in the history of wireless communications, we are able to control the propagation of wireless signals in the environment. So, and this is done without the need of consuming extra power, which is needed for the installation of new devices, because these kind of reflectors are passive. So you would just need to program it towards the direction where you would want them to steer the signal, and they would steer it toward a desired user or users, or they would actually cut the signals in a direction where you don't want the signal to go to if there is an eavesdropper or an unlicensed user. So there's a lot to play with in this technology and a lot to explore and a lot to investigate. And I'm currently working with my PhD students, and we're working with industrial partners on how this kind of technology can support an outdoor application, an outdoor IoT application, where there is a drone supporting the data harvesting from IoT devices. They could be distributed to do some sort of a surveillance in an agricultural environment, or in a structure, in a building structure. So, or for any part of application, they could also be supporting in environmental crisis recovery. So the idea is that how we can ensure that coverage is maintained for the drone in order to collect this data from the IoT, even if it undergoes blockages from the main base stations or the main transmitters on the roadsides of the streets. So in that case, if we install a reflecting surface, it would steer the signal coming from the transmitter towards the drone, and this way we can ensure that the drone has coverage throughout its mission without losing the connectivity, and this will ensure that the data is collected at the desired time, and that the IoT devices participating are scheduled based on the available resources rather than wasting the existing resources or requiring unnecessary extra resources.
So since you studied also electronics and electrical, similar to wire transmission, when it comes to power transmission, you don't necessarily need a repeater, so just the reflector would do it, where you would be able to reflect just the frequency instead of trying to capture it, make it stronger, then send it out.
Yes, indeed. So these kind of technologies would replace a conventional repeater, because the repeater would need power to receive the signal, amplify it, or forward it, or decode it and forward it. But in certain applications, when there is a massive scale of deployment for IoTs, then if we replace these repeaters with these reflecting surfaces, so not only we are improving the performance of the network, but also reducing the needed power to do that. So it's kind of a win-win.
That's fascinating. Can I ask you, like, whenever you found out at the age of 6 you want to become a wireless engineer, researcher, when you were in that tower, who was, like, in the science ever through your journey really somebody you looked up to, or you inspired you? I mean, did you go in, like, part of your journey, like, who's Tesla? Let me find out what he was trying to do, send frequency across the world, you know, and transmit. Did you ever get into any of, you know, did you have anybody like that you looked up to, like, okay, you know, this was the most fascinating? And then also, I want to know if you did dive into Tesla's research that people talk about a lot, you know, that was partially discovered, partially not discovered, you know, all that interesting stuff.
So you actually pinpoint the right scientist, whose work had a great influence on the direction of my research and a great source of inspiration. And yes, Tesla was one of them. And I have investigated his work thoroughly. not only because I was very much curious about the kind of work he has conducted, but I was also curious that why at that time when he conducted it and he had successful results, that it didn't lead to further improvements until only in the very modern days. And the reason was that because I was, and during my PhD, I was doing, my main research topic is simultaneous wireless and information power transfer. It means that the same signal that we are transmitting information with, we can also make use of the power that it is carrying to both receive the signal and power the devices that it is actually received through. So, and the idea of power transfer is not new. It all goes back to Tesla's work long time ago. And I started reading about that, especially when I developed my PhD thesis, that I wanted to lay the background. I wanted to lay the foundation of the history. I wanted to understand what is the reason of why a technology could start, but it could stop at a certain period of time, and then it can be picked up again. And I came to know something very interesting, which is at that time, in order to be able to transmit power, which could be received at a distance. So, and I'm talking now about wireless power. So if we, I'm not talking about the transmission of power with wires, but I'm talking about the wireless transmission of power, which is pioneered by Tesla. At that
Sorry,
time,
was that AC? Was that AC at the time?
Was that again what?
AC versus DC.
Right. So yes, so that was AC at that time, but whether it is, the idea was that there was a need to transmit that without any wires. And yes, it was an AC power, but the reason why the technology stopped, although the measurements were successful, is that Tesla needed to create a huge antenna in order for a very small amount of power to be received by a very huge receiver. Now, this means that there were no possibility to design portable electronics that can be easily used in daily lives or can be installed in indoors or outdoors for daily use. So they were, all the equipment were bulky, they were heavy, and they were not simply impractical. And the reason was because the science of electronics at that time did not help in having the devices at a very small size. Now, it was only until a few years ago where the electronic science advanced at the same time, and where very small electronic devices were able to make use of very small amount of power to be charged, to charge their sensors, to charge their receivers, or to charge basically their internal circuit. It was only until now that the concept of wireless power transfer was appreciated, because only now this small amount of received power wirelessly can be actually be useful to power these small devices. And this immediately made me realize the importance of having this multidisciplinary approach, that maybe one field could be really advancing very fast, but if another associated field that is very much related to it or dependent on it is not advancing at the same pace, then that technology might not find its way out to the world. It might not lead to the commercialization of the product. Reading that, it inspired me a lot, reading how Tesla was persistent in conducting all the kind of research, regardless of the challenges. It definitely has inspired me, and even seeing his inventions in his hometown, Serbia. So I went to a museum and saw his inventions, and it was at that time, what I saw was the AC motor power generation. it also inspired me how I would teach that subject in my courses, because I was assigned to teach power generation in the department, and being able to reflect on that history and that invention, it helped me even create a very compelling and interesting story to my students.
We wrap this
That's-
up, Lina, I have this one final question. So we see that you have your hands everywhere, like you are into research, your involvement with IEEE, and then you're also teaching. How do you sort of, balance all these things? And then you're a full-time mom as well. So how do you balance all of these things in life?
Right. So first of all, we need to start by appreciating the importance of each of these roles in our career or in our personal development. And then starting allocating priorities to each one of these roles accordingly. I think the big lesson I have learned to be able to juggle all of these different responsibilities is to shift my priorities from week to week, or from maybe month to month. Maybe these 2 weeks I'm more focused on developing the material for teaching, because I have teaching duties during these intensively during these 2 weeks. And also I support a transnational education program, which means that I need to regularly travel to China and deliver lectures, as well as supporting my postgraduate students in Glasgow. So depending on the deadline, depending on what kind of events I would want to be involved in, what kind of workshops I would like to be organizing, what sort of communities I want to be visible in, what sort of activities or what sort of needs my daughter or family would need at home, I would then be shifting these priorities from one week to the other. So you would see me 1 week more focused maybe on my teaching. The next week I would be more focused on delivering or focusing all my attention to my research students or research groups, because they would have deadlines for their paper and for their annual review submissions. In other cases, I would be more focused in planning the organization of the events. But the main point is that when I shift these priorities, I make sure to write them. So I'm still old style. So I would say, okay, this week I'm going to steer my attention for this particular task, and I try to kind of isolate myself from others. Although it's very hard to isolate myself from other demanding tasks, because the work in academia is not only about teaching and research. There's a lot behind it as well. We also do a lot of administrative work. We do a lot of service to the university and the community. We do lots of volunteering work, as you mentioned, such as in the IEEE reviewing the paper by research community. So there is a lot more than just teaching and research, and it is all based on listening to your body and mind. So at times when I'm completely overwhelmed, I would give myself the space to just re-energize, calm down. I would socialize with my
I
friends.
must appreciate that with this entire routine, you look flawless, and you're an inspiring teacher, and you're an inspiring engineer, not an inspiring one, but a very successful one, and then you're a full-time mom. So I'm sure after this podcast, a lot of girls out there will they'll be more motivated towards actually pursuing this as their career field, because again, engineers can turn out as beautiful as you are.
Oh,
And
thank you so much.
yeah.
I'm most flattered. But reflecting on that point, Rida, I would say always surround yourself with inspiring group of women, because or someone who you would feel that he or she is a role model. Going back to Zach's question on role models, I would always participate in events where women in engineering is the spot, where women in engineering are in the spotlight. So I would go and have conversations with these women, even after they deliver technical talk. I would talk with them, understand their challenges, and I would realize, oh, our challenges are really similar. And if she can do it, if she did it, then there is a way of probably that I could do it as well. It is just a matter of learning and understanding what would work for me. And I came to learn that what would work for me doesn't necessarily work for others. But having this strong supportive system or a community of women in the field, I know it is hard to find that many, but even if they're not within your same department, sometimes they would be collaborators, or they would be people that you would have met in events. And then you create that friendship and keep the connection flowing. Then I think that would really have a very, very positive impact. And that's something I would really stress on young female researchers, which is surround yourself with like-minded women.
What a powerful message. But can we give some credit to your husband too, or no?
Of course, yes, we can most definitely do that. I would say he was a big, he is my big supporter, himself and
Is
my
he an
parents
engineer
as well.
also, or sorry?
He isn't an engineer. He comes from the business management field.
Oh, okay.
But interestingly, he works in business strategies developments for education platforms. So he is related to education in one way or another. But I would really endorse his long support with me. And he was one of the he is one of my strongest and biggest fans, always driving me to take opportunities, even though we would both know that it would bring lots of challenges to our families, but he was always there from day one to support my decisions and my career.
I think he's smart enough to know that you always need some challenges ahead of you. That's what it is.
Indeed, absolutely, absolutely. It's a
I think
teamwork,
Anika,
isn't it?
exactly.
Definitely.
But that's the beauty of it, right? I think Anika had a question.
No, I have many questions, and we couldn't even cover what we have agreed on because we are just ahead of the time, and I'm really sad that we won't be able to cover because we have already consumed a lot of time from Dr. Lina. So one last thing, what advice would you give to our listeners, especially the ones who are just, just haven't decided either they should be taking research or not? I myself have skipped this part when I was doing my MS in project management because I thought it is again time taking, and it's so challenging. But I would really like you to give some advice related to this and anything else as well, which can keep them motivated in whatever they want to achieve in their life.
Okay, so I would highly encourage them, first of all, to learn about what would one field help them in working in. So, for example, when I talk with high school students about electrical engineering, they would always think that electrical engineers, they would play with wires, and it's all about these very hard kind of skills that they would need to apply, and that this is something would be very, very boring to them. However, my message to them would be, don't restrict your way of thinking to one particular aspect. Try to sit with other people and learn from their stories, what inspired them, what made them take a decision over another. What is it that they have led them to be either in industry or academia? And I would stress on the fact that electrical engineering or science is now in everyday's life. So this means that they can basically apply it to whatever passionate field that they would have, whether it is fashion, beauty, sports, music. We live in a highly connected world, and we live in a very multidisciplinary. Most of the education institutes, they encourage multidisciplinary at the moment, but don't, I would say, have this flexibility in the way you are thinking. Be open about your needs, about your emotions, about the challenges you are facing, because majority of the time it is all happening in our head. Sometimes we suffocate ourselves, or just because it is happening in our head and it has nothing related to reality. So having those open conversations would really help them decide to go one way or another. I know that life happens, circumstances could lead one to decide on one route or another. For example, I was very much persistent to pursue a career in industry when I graduated my PhD, but it never happened. Life took me somewhere else. So just trust your internal feeling, and this will guide you. As long as you have the passion, you have the drive, this will guide you. And if you chose to go into one direction, this does not mean that you cannot go to the other. So you can change as long as you have the will, as long as you have the desire. Most importantly, and I will conclude that by borrowing a quote from Mary Curie, and I always use it in my presentation slide at the last slide. She said, "Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood." So whatever comes across and you would feel that it is overwhelming you, just try to understand it, how you can do it, how it is done, how other people have done it, and it would simply help you as well in doing it. And overcoming these fears basically would open up a million opportunities.
What a beautiful quote, actually. I
Thank
try
you.
to apply
Very useful,
that.
and I still use it. Until this
I
day.
try to apply that in some areas. With like politics doesn't work for me, but overall, yeah, I try to understand. But
yeah, it could be sometimes understanding for example, in my case, understanding where the different research members of my group come from, what is their perspective, what they were expecting, what is their way of thinking, and learning that
like
would help them as well in return.
I think, like you said, it's a lot of it in our head, and it's especially after the pandemic. I think a lot of people have realized, we have so much going on in our head, and not necessarily all of that stuff is true,
Oh yes,
and there's a lot of it is really then it messes up with our perception. You see something as a number 6. I look at it from my point of view as number 9, and we argue about it.
Absolutely. And this is even more significant in women, trust me, because we always feel that we lack the abilities, we lack the confidence to do it, especially in a man-dominated field. So when I joined Glasgow, I was one out of 30 colleagues, 30 male colleagues, and I was the only one. Until recently, we became 3 women. But during that time, I would always question my competency, and if I'm in the right place, if I can deliver as much as I can, if I can compete with what they are achieving. And then I realized it has been always in my head.
But it's amazing times you see nowadays everywhere. I think women are, excelling on all levels, and it's very inspiring to be surrounded by, beautiful, like Rita said, beautiful and smart women at the same time. I'd like to learn more about your, you touched up on something on this regards to beauty and technology. I don't know how much time we have, but maybe in the future, if we don't have time, Anika, maybe we have another session on that and learn more about, some of these.
Exclusive session on beauty, Jack.
Thank you so much. I'm okay in terms of time. If you guys are okay, I'm okay in terms of time.
Because you got my interest, and I woke up and now I can't go back to sleep.
So just a brief about that, perhaps. I've always wanted to do something related to beauty, but also use my expertise and skills to advance a relevant solution related to beauty. So perhaps something surprising for the audience here is that 4 or 5 years ago, I was very active in beauty content creation on social media. And from there, I learned a lot of a big deal about the beauty industry and how products are launched and what sort of science are put into it and all of that. But when I became in a position where I can lead a research into whatever direction I wanted it to be, and I would would like to spotlight about the beauty of being an academic is that it is very autonomous, it is very independent. You feel that you could do whatever you want to work on, especially talking about research aspect, and you can develop whatever solutions you can work on the development of any solutions in whatever field. It could be beauty, for example. So for me, that in that case, I was thinking is that, so at a day, I was scrolling through my, my online shopping activity, and I came across a product on Amazon called a smart mirror. And I was really intrigued, like, what is a smart mirror? And then I read more about it, and I came to know that there are mirrors commercialized at the moment where they look like an iPad, but it is an actual mirror, an electronic mirror, I would say. It has a camera. It can capture an image of the face, and it can, through machine learning algorithms, it can do some analysis, and it can recommend you what sort of beauty product your skin needs. And I was fascinated by that, because if this can be scaled to other beauty and health sectors, it means that we are, left with endless opportunities to apply it into. It is not necessarily related to only skincare. It could be also dentistry. It could be identifying the health of the skin, or identifying what sort of eyeshadow shades or foundation shades most suits your skin at the current moment, or at the current mood. So it can capture some data, and then it can align those beauty recommendations based on your current status. So when I came across that product, I worked on developing a vision. I created a vision, of course, with colleagues at University of Glasgow and students, and the vision is what if we have a ubiquitous platform of interconnected mirrors? And what if these mirrors talk to each other and learn from the data that they capture in order to improve the performance of whatever they are designed to do, whether it is beauty product recommendation, makeup product recommendation, whether it is analyzing the skin health, whether it is analyzing the smile alignment, which is something also very interesting that we published a couple of weeks ago, is that can a camera identify the smile and perhaps recommend what sort of treatment, dental treatment you need, without even the need to visit a dentist, or let's say you would visit a dentist and they would recommend you some sort of aligners to put, or braces to put, and without the need to monitor the progress. What if these mirrors are able to capture the progress, send this data to the doctors or to the health providers, and basically the recommendation of whether to change or not to change these aligners could be recommended. And the same thing can apply to many relevant fields in aesthetic beauty or in healthcare. But what I wanted to do, and this is something that no one has done it in the first place, is that how we can manage the resources of the communication network in order to support the improving the performance of these mirrors, because they capture images or videos in real time, and this needs to be processed and transmitted at a very high speed with the lowest latency in real time. So how can we support, what sort of solutions the network is lacking at the moment, and how we can improve it? So this is a project under study. We have launched it a year ago, and we have students working on it. There are 2 papers out there describing this vision, and it is something that would really keeps me driving forward as something that would be of interest to me as a woman, but I'm sure that it would interest also other researchers. And you wouldn't think that, I mean, going back, when I studied electrical engineering, I would never have thought that I could do something with electrical and electronics engineering into beauty. So that's, again, going back to the message that I wanted to say to the girls. Don't limit your dreams, because they do come true.
Share the link of that product with us.
Yeah, so I will share the paper. It isn't a product yet,
Yeah.
so it is a research under study.
Oh, all right. All right.
But we are going, because we are taking it more or on an academic approach at the moment in the university. So it is more of a research work at the moment. But we are looking forward to collaborate with companies and industrial partners to basically support in the development of a product into this area.
When you're
think,
ready to go towards commercialization, let me know. I would be interested in possibly getting involved or providing you support.
Yes, of course, when we reach to that development stage into the technology development cycle, I'll make sure that Zengit would receive the heads up of what's coming.
Yeah, anywhere we could, you're part of the community, so our goal is to help our community as well, you know, and anything we can do, especially in that area, like you said, you know, and even is a very, you know, tricky, you know, discussion, right, with the social media and the impact on the, you know, younger generation, even younger girls, right, and a lot of that, but you being mindful of all those and coming up with a solution that could guide people and help people and give them feedback in a positive way. Why not? You know.
Absolutely.
I think on this, yeah. Anika, you wanted to?
Yes, Jack. No, I was just saying that after watching this podcast, a lot many people will be going and searching for that one mirror which Lina has mentioned, including me, so that everybody can get to know what their skin needs. So that's a
That's
great
the direction the technology is going. Yeah, I mean they're doing that already. They have those mirrors for the closet where you could check out your clothing before you wear them. Instantly it tells you what, you know, it would look like, and you don't have to put them on and take them off. You could instantly see, what if I want to wear this? What if I,
yeah, it's like an
right?
augmented reality.
Exactly.
And even though lots of makeup brands at the moment, they would have this mobile app where you can basically take a picture of your face and they would tell you what sort of makeup suits you or what kind of lipstick shade or foundation shade would suit you. So the technology is there. I mean, the idea, it is there. But what is missing is that how all of these devices or connected things can learn from each other and how we can create a network platform that supports the demands of different applications which are delivered by this kind of ecosystem.
I think that's going to be the key. And if you could be the one developing that platform and the foundation, you know, everything else could sit on that and operate on that, you know, platform.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to establish connections with industry to hopefully lead that into commercialization, because I know that any technology starts from, you know, the research, the development cycle, where it is more of testing a prototype and so building a prototype, testing it in a lab environment, in a research center, but then taking that forward to commercialization is something that I know that it would take a lot of time of effort, but I'm very much excited about this journey. And I'm really looking forward to connect with the right people who are also excited to look into the fascinating field of communication and beauty.
And we would be more than happy to help you along that journey and connect you with a lot of the players in that area as well in the industry.
Thank you. That would be very much appreciated.
And then in the future, Anika, I think it was Disney or something, you had to say mirror, mirror, and then the mirror would do something.
Yes, that was Snow White's
stepmother. Mirror, mirror, who is the prettiest of all?
Yes, indeed. And that's where we got the inspiration of the title of that paper that I have just shared.
Interesting. Well, I guess we're ready to conclude. We're limited on our time, and hopefully we could have another session with you and dive in deeper and invite you back and discuss and learn more. Thank you so much for your story, for your journey, sharing it with us, and being an award-winning scientist and an award-winning mom at the same time. And really appreciate that.
Thank you so much, everyone, for having me. It has been really enjoyable to have this conversation. And I hope that in one way or another, my story would inspire the young researchers out there and lead them to take a career into a science field.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your precious time, Dr. Lina. It was lovely talking to you, and we are hoping to catch up with you again.
Thank you. Thank you. Hopefully we'll stay in touch, and I'm looking forward.
For sure. All right. Have a great
Bye-bye.
rest of your day.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. You too. Bye. Bye.